Hello, I'm Josh, and this is the Bacon Lodge Adventures. Today I'm going to show you how I made my rotor, however you want to say it, plane. It's a surfacing plane for large items. I made mine out of these parts, and I'm going to list them all in the video, and then I'll put them in the description as well. First, I just have a router that I got from the local store here, Menards. It's one of their heavier duty ones, but it's nothing too fancy, just a regular router. And then I got these linear rails. I got 48-inch linear rails by 90, and then another set of 90 linear rails. That's actually the most expensive part of this entire thing. What I would recommend to you, instead of doing what I did, is I got the ones where they have the open style brackets here. For the mount that actually mounts to the router, you want to get the sealed ones so they don't get as much gunk in them. The ones that ride along the sides, this style works really well. I didn't know that, so I got this style. I modified them to work, so it still works, but if you get the other ones, which I'll put in the description, it'll work better for you. Besides that, I got a 1/4 inch thick piece of plexiglass that's 12 inches around. I got the necessary hardware that I'll look up that fits into the screw holes of those brackets. Regular wood screws. I got a new bit that I haven't used yet, so this one has replaceable carbides on it. The other one I had after somebody uses it just started to tear out. Here's the other one. Just the tips of them are starting to burn up, so it wasn't cutting as clean. This should cut cleaner. Other than that, this is what I'm going to be upgrading to now. It's called a dust shoe. Hopefully it's going to keep a little bit of the dust where my vacuum can actually suck it up, and then I'm just using some oak to do that. I'm going to start at the beginning of what I did to make this plate. I can't show you because I made this a long time ago, but we're going to move on past that. So to affix the router to this plate, what I did is this plate comes attached to the bottom of the router, and I took it off of there, and I really simply just lined it up on here where I wanted it offset because I thought I was going to be able to do a vacuum, but the 2 1/4 inch for dust vac isn't strong enough for like a shop vac. You need to have like a dust collector. So I just lined it up here, marked the 4 holes, and drilled through it. Then I equally spaced out the brackets. Make sure they're in the same plane when they're running. So basically space them off of the edges the same amount. That way when your rails are running, they're staying true and you're not fighting the rails. And then I drilled some extra holes around the outside. Those are going to be for this bracket that I'm going to be putting on there to hold this dust shoe, which is what we're going to be working on today. Hopefully this modification will be able to make this more usable inside. Because when I use it without this inside here, the dust and chips just fly everywhere and it's a pain to clean up. It's easier to use it outside, but then you got to carry all this stuff outside, and like in the wintertime, it's not very fun. So we're going to try to make it so it's more friendly to use in here. And then at the end, I'll show you how I set it up and we'll use it. So that's that. So the first thing I'm going to be working on is these are just some pieces of oak that I had. I thought I'd use something a little bit stronger than pine. And what it is, it's going to just basically make a box that's going to go around here. So there's 2 long ones at 12 inches and then 2 short ones at 10.5 inches because you're just subtracting the depth of the material, which these are 3/4. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill some countersunk holes into the longer ones, which I have marked out with a line here at 3/8 of an inch that'll split the middle of the 3/4 inch board, and then we'll go through that. So we're going to use the drill press to countersink the holes that I'm going to put screws through to connect this together. I'm using a countersink in the drill press because it'll keep the board and the drill perpendicular to each other, and the countersink leaves a little hole. I already did a couple just so you can sink the head of the screw into the board itself. So I'll show you how I do this. Okay, now that we have the 2 boards with the holes drilled with the countersinks, we're going to use these screws. So what I did is I got a corresponding drill bit that was smaller than the thread size so that I could pre-drill into these. To do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up because I didn't mark the actual location. I didn't make sure these were all on the exact spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set them up and I'm going to mark numbers across them. So when I go to reassemble them, I know that I'm getting the parts together. So like this will be number 1, number 1, number 2, number 2, That way when I drill them, I know that they're going to line back up next time. So to drill them, I got to kind of do this so I can show it to you. So we're going to start on this one. I'm just going to line it up where they're going to be. And we're going to run the, I'm just going to start the drill enough so that I can get the mark of where it's going to be. I'm going to do this one over here because the drill's too tall. So once I got the little marks on there, I'm just going to run the drill as deep as I can, as deep as I need to be for the screws to not strip out when you put them in there. Pretty simple. And now I'm just going to speed up and go through fast how I did the rest of them, and then we'll get to the next step. So now that we have all of the holes pre-drilled and countersunk, we're going to put some glue on them and screw them together. When you're doing it, make sure you're lining up your numbers. I got 1 and 1. Just take a little bit of glue, hopefully. And you'll more than likely have squeeze out, so kind of be prepared for it. And you're just going to, yeah. Now, because I countersunk them, those nails are flush in there. So I'll put you a time lapse and I'll get the other one set up. Now that's all assembled, I just set it on top of the plate. I'm going to actually flip it over. And I'll put the plate on top here. And the screw holes that I pre-drilled in this, I'm going to pre-drill again so I can put screws into it to hold that plate to this fixture. Okay, so I have these 1/2-inch T50 staples that go on your staple gun. So I'm gonna try those. If not, I can also try hot glue. But I think I want to, in case it ever gets really gummed up, I want to be able to replace it. So I'm gonna try this. So I'm gonna try to show you. I'm lining up the bottom of this ribbon right at the bottom of the wood. So right above the acrylic or plexiglass. It'll work. I don't think I gotta go crazy with the staples. So I think 5 on each side might be crazy, but that way it doesn't, because it's gonna have chunks of debris blowing towards it. Okay, so I got it reassembled. You can see the 2 holes that I put in there. Also, while I was rebuilding it, I decided to hose adapter here that I have that can go up to my 4-inch. I decided to try it with that adapter with the 4-inch off the top and having the dust shoe go all the way around. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how I reassemble this. First of all, I wanted to show you all the components. I kind of went over them before. These are the linear rails that I have that go for the lateral, I guess, instead of the longitudinal ones. The ones that go sideways instead of the long ways. So what I had to do is the original ones, they had this rail went all the way down it. So I took it off and I just cut a chunk of it out. The reason why I did that was because that way they could ride through here. What basically I'm just going to do is I'm just going to push them back through here. And kind of leave them space so you can see it. It doesn't fall over the place. Okay, and then those ride on these other ones that I have that go on the other side rails. So all this is just a piece of oak. I have a bunch of this oak. That's why I use it for. You could use pine. I just kind of use the oak as a little bit harder. And then I have it bolted. These are just what I had for bolts. Some of them are screws, some are bolts. It's bolted into the blocks that ride on the other rails. Basically, I made them so they're as wide as what I wanted. So they run parallel to each other, so they can ride straight on there. And then I mount these sides to the top of this. So this has to be as wider than your box. So that's that. So I'm going to reassemble those, and then I'll bring out the rails and we'll get it all set up. So I'm probably just going to reassemble these off camera. So basically, I'm just going to do is I'm just going to be screwing this onto these rails, and then I'll show you the setting up the actual rails on the table. So what I have for the rail system for what I set up on the sides is this is a 2-inch by 2-inch square stock. I bought a 24-foot length of it, cut each of these long ones to 8 feet, each of the shorter ones to 4 feet. And then what I did was, these are the longer linear rails. And I just drilled and tapped these screws in so that way it anchors it down. My thought was with being the square steel, I know it's true straight and it should keep it, as straight as possible. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I set it up, my workbench. I put on these cleats on the edge here so I can take the 48-inch long ones and just spread them across here on both sides. Then I take a clamp and I just clamp them down so they stay there. And then on the rails, there's one without marks, there's one with marks. I put the one with the marks on the side that I'm going to be standing on, which is going to be that side. So then I just literally just move these out. And they have to go to the far end of the rails for this, for the way I have it set up on my jig. I don't anchor these down in any way yet because I need them a little flexible to be able to work with this. The next step is kind of the hardest part because you gotta work this into the, I think I set these, yeah, I did set these too far apart. That's okay. So when I reassembled it wrong, but I will correct that in just a second here. I should have marked them where they were. As you can see that my too wide, I got to move this into here. First thing I have to do is I have to take apart this lower bracket so I can get to the bolts that hold these little pieces of aluminum on there. One thing I forgot to tell you, that when you're putting on this is one long piece, I usually have one of these longer rails set back a little bit other so I can get this fed onto that all by itself without trying to fight them both at the same time. That's why this one is shifted forward a little bit. So I'm going to get these all mounted back up and I'll show you how it runs. Okay, so I'm going to show you this is how much debris there was when we did it. I mean, this kind of looks like a lot, but this is nothing compared to what it does if you don't have any type of dust collection on there. So that shoe on there really helped. Most of this debris is from when you're first doing it and the shoe is hanging out like way over here so that it doesn't catch it because it kind of blows underneath it. But it did a pretty good job. So now this isn't for finishing, this is just getting it close to plane so that you can take it to your sander or whatever you want to do. You do see that it chips out the epoxy pretty good. There's ways to fix that, and I could show that in another video, but this still needs to be sanded because it's quite rough. But overall, that's how you work a router sled. So to set the adjustments, it varies by your router itself. My first pass, I had set it to this corner here, and evidently that was the shortest corner. But basically what I try to do is only take about 1/8 of an inch at a time, and you set it at the highest. I didn't take enough time to actually figure out what was the highest or lowest. But other than that, it is all set up. Hopefully that helps you. So that's the video on the router slide. The improvement of adding this dust shoe to it made it much, much nicer. It still makes a mess, but nowhere near as much. Some things I didn't say in the video is that to slide it back and forth, I just put a pipe or a clamp on here on the box, and then you can slide it back and forth. The 2 1/4 inch to 4 inch adapter for the dust collector helps out immensely. I have tried this with just like a shop vac 2 1/4 inch. It doesn't have enough volume to suck up very much, so you need to have the bigger one. If you don't have dust collection, take it outside. Worst case scenario is you put some sawdust in your yard, and it thickens your yard up. It won't hurt anything. At least I don't think it'll hurt anything. I'll go through and I'll put all the materials in the description of the video. That way you can, if you want to make something similar, you can see what it is. This is the most cost-effective way I can think to do it. I'm not going to put like the scrap oak and stuff in there because you can use whatever you want, whatever you have handy. A couple of tips are when you take it apart, the bearings on these slides, just throw some grease, some type of lubricant on them, because over time they kind of slide, they kind of stop sliding as easily. So you throw some grease on there every once in a while, make sure they're clean. Yeah, it helps out quite a bit. Hopefully continue to watch this. I want to thank you for watching. May God bless you, and you have a great day.